Hi, everyone. Get ready for the How I Raise It podcast, the show where you get an inside, unfiltered look at how real entrepreneurs raise capital for their businesses. I'm your host, Nathan Beckard, and today's episode is with Paxton Maeder-York of Alife Health, a startup tackling infertility and IVF with software and technology. It's a pretty interesting business. We talk about how to pitch a startup to investors when you don't yet have a product in the market, basically how to pitch your vision and plan to raise capital. If you're tuning into this podcast to learn how to raise capital for your business, I've created a super valuable free welcome package for you. It contains a list of 2,500 investors who don't require a warm intro, plus 200 questions that investors are going to ask you. So this will help you prepare to raise capital. To get instant access to this, click the link in the first comment. And while you're there, please leave us a nice comment what you like about this show. Really appreciate the comments. And last but not least, if you enjoyed this conversation and think someone else would too, please share it with them and hit that subscribe button to get all our latest episodes. Thank you very much for being here. Sit back and enjoy the chat with Paxton.
Welcome to How I Raised It, the podcast that goes behind the scenes with entrepreneurs who've raised capital. We uncover the tips, tricks, and techniques they use to get investors to write a check. Strap in and turn it up.
Hi, welcome to another episode of How I Raised It, produced by foundersuite.com. Today I have Paxton Maeder-York of Alife Health coming to us from Cambridge, Massachusetts. How's it going there in Cambridge today?
It's great. Thank you very much for having me, Nathan.
Great. Well, what is Alife Health? Tell us what you guys do.
Sure. So Alife Health is founded on the mission of improving the equity and efficacy of IVF and assisted reproductive therapies. As you may or may not know, infertility is growing at an alarming rate. 1 in 6 couples suffer from infertility today. There are forecasts that by 2045, the majority of couples may be needing assisted reproduction in order to reproduce. And what we do is build a technology suite to improve the empowerment, transparency, affordability, and effectiveness of assisted reproductive therapies today and into the future.
Interesting. So I want to dig into what you do a little more, but why is infertility? I mean, there's probably a lot of reasons, but what are the top theories of why infertility is increasing so much?
There are a number of different reasons. Some are environmental, believed to be, plastics and other chemicals in our food and our just daily lives. Also growing kind of education rates around the world, contraception, hormonal therapies that are being used. All of these are contributing. But obviously, this is an enormous problem for the future of kind of our species and one worth working on.
Yeah, interesting. So let's get into what specifically you do. I'm a part of a couple. We're having trouble conceiving. We come to you, and what happens next?
So the current care pathway is incredibly disjointed with hundreds of different resources at the beginning, many different clinics to choose from. It's very expensive, an average of $61,000 per successful baby that you get to take home.
61000?
61000.
That's a lot.
It is. And in beyond that, it's a very opaque process. There's lack of kind of involvement or decision-making power for the patient. And it's also typically done through, the expertise of the individual clinician, which is paramount importance, of course. But what we can do with artificial intelligence is look at hundreds of thousands to millions of prior IVF cases from around the United States and around the world, and use algorithms to pull out important patterns. And with those types of tools, we can really tailor and personalize the treatment plan to that individual. We can use a data-centric approach to optimize their chances of success. We can hopefully reduce the cost incurred by the patient, or at least make it more accessible to them. And then, of course, give them more information about their journey individually.
Okay, interesting. And this is something that is paid for by insurance, or I'm typically paying out of pocket? Is it a subscription? Is it per child? How's it work?
So today, about 75% of IVF is out-of-pocket pay, which is a remarkable statistic. Over time, we expect this to, become more covered by self-insured employers, maybe some smaller, kind of insurance plans and places like that may offer it. There are some states that are offering, kind of mandated coverage of varying degrees, but it really is a very challenging, area from a cost standpoint. What we do is we build different types of AI tools, typically utilized by the clinician themselves, to optimize the treatment, reduce the number of cycles. The average number of cycles to a healthy baby is 3 cycles, each one of those costing about $20,000. So anything we can do to reduce the number of cycles a patient needs is going to be saving them money, and ultimately, kind of improving their chances of success.
And so let me drill in even a little more. How does your software and AI help reduce cycles? I'm not quite connecting the dots. I think I get it conceptually.
Great question.
Yeah.
So we build a number of different artificial intelligence-based tools. So one example is we use AI to analyze microscope images of human embryos and predict the likelihood of successful pregnancy. And that allows clinicians to better prioritize which embryo to transfer into the mother first, thus reducing the number of cycles they may need. Other things we do around optimizing the dosage of medications, and then also creating, just a lot of tools that are useful to the end patient for finding the right clinicians for them, understanding what their chances of success are, understanding the cost associated. So it's really an all-in-one encompassing solution. The goal is to really create a one-stop shop for people suffering from infertility to have all the tools they need, both from a patient side as well as a clinician side, with all of those tools talking to each other through data.
Cool. And you guys have been around how long, and what was the genesis story to this? Is there a backstory?
Absolutely. So the company was founded in early 2020. And a little bit about my background. I studied biomedical engineering here at Harvard undergrad, worked in the surgical robotics space on early stage lung cancer systems. I lost several grandparents to lung cancer, so it was a mission that really resonated with me. I then went back to do a data science master's, and increasingly became infatuated with just this opportunity for AI to help improve standard of care and optimize treatment for patients in need. And it was through that I kind of discovered the opportunity for AI to improve in vitro fertilization. My younger brother is actually an IVF baby. I'm the result of fertility care. The societal benefit of this type of technology can't be overstated. Whether it's supporting people starting families later for career reasons, or the LGBTQ plus community and non-traditional families, there's just so much opportunity to help people through this type of care, and it's only going to increase, unfortunately, as we see growing infertility trends. Interesting.
Does this ever, maybe I'm getting ahead by quite a bit, but does this ever have applications to, for folks who are not having challenges conceiving, to either help select the sex of their baby? I know some people try and manipulate that a little bit, or even just reduce risk of, having Down syndrome and other issues. Does it help optimize your baby? This is a random question, but you get where I'm going with this.
Yeah. I do, and it's a very complicated area to move into that direction. We really focus on just improving the chances for success for a live pregnancy. So we are not looking at anything trying to optimize the health of your child or anything above and beyond just really helping you start a family at this point. There have been some other technologies that have flirted with that. I think the scientific community has been very clear about the challenges that are posed and kind of the lack of evidence that some of those technologies have been able to produce. So, we really focus on enabling infertility, reproductive endocrinologists, infertility clinicians to have the best tools that they can to give you a child and have a new family creation or continuation of your family story, if it's a second or third or fourth child. And then, of course, help the patient navigate this complicated process.
Personal question, you can skip it if you choose to, but are you a customer of your own platform?
Thankfully, I'm not yet, but there's a very high likelihood I will be. And, in that case, I would be the first one to use it for sure.
Sure. Cool. Great. Let's talk about raising money. How much have you guys raised and over how many rounds?
So we've raised about $9.5 million over the course of really one round plus a convertible note. We could not be more thankful to be working with the team over at Lux Capital, who led that round. Deena Shakir is just a rock star in the space. She's brought so much to our team in terms of advice and helping us really grow our story and tell it to the world. From everything from hiring to you name it. She's been my first call for everything we talk about. I think it's been a really wonderful journey so far, getting the kind of response from the investment community. I think it comes across very clearly that infertility, given its growth, and where people like Elon Musk and Bill Gates and Jack Ma are starting to call this out as a big problem. There's clearly a big need here. And while there has been a lot of money raised by quite a few companies in this space, all of them tend to, kind of avoid the core of the issue, which is improving the efficacy and reducing the barriers to access of infertility care. And so that's really what Alife drives at, especially recognizing these broader trends.
Yeah, interesting. Let's talk about putting this round together. Did you have investor relationships? How did you identify investors that would be interested in this? Were you looking at life sciences or healthcare investors, or how'd you kind of assemble this round?
Yeah, I had been very fortunate to work at a place like Auris Health beforehand, and so had been building relationships with investors through that experience, including Lux Capital, who had been an investor in Auris, and so they knew me, they knew my work. That helped a lot. We did have conversations with lots of the major firms back when we were raising this round, mostly through introductions from other relationships in the tech sector. So advisors to the company, people who worked with us in the past, and that was really a strong way of approaching that kind of process. I think what is always helpful is getting to know an investor first. And so what our convertible note allowed us to do is basically make a bunch of progress before getting to that seed stage and spend that time really getting to know some investors. So I got to know Deena for almost a year before we ultimately decided to work together. And that was just incredibly valuable. By the time we, formalized the relationship, it was a very small change relative to how we had been working together. And so for any first-time founder, or early stage founder, I would recommend they view, especially a seed stage investment, as really almost bringing on a co-founder. This person is going to help you shape your story. They're going to help you, with everything, that goes into taking a company from 0 to 1. They're going to be your sounding board. And so finding the right individual that complements the founder's skill set, that is excited by the mission to the point that they're willing to almost roll up their sleeves and help get into the trenches on some of these more difficult decisions that you have to make as you're growing a business, is invaluable to the ultimate kind of goal at hand. So all of those things were taken into account when we went out and raised our seed. And then beyond that, we were very fortunate to have the support of so many really renowned founders in the space. So Anne Wojcicki from 23andMe, Tom Lee from One Medical, Fred Moll from Intuitive Surgical. We have, the list goes on. We were very fortunate to have all their support. And of course, as a founder, most of your really the best advice comes from other founders a few steps ahead. And so I've been able to lean on a lot of those relationships and advice in order to continue to scale our business, hopefully better than as the new generation of startups.
So let's talk about actually that then. Let's unpack it a little bit, get into the how. Like Anne Wojcicki, I'm probably not getting her name right, but how did you identify her? How did you get to know her? Was it through previous? Because that's a huge name, right? So like, how do you get some of these big names as advisors / angels? Tactical.
So, some of it is definitely cold outreach, but a lot of it comes through other people vouching for you in the space. So, I was very, very lucky to have connections to Anne through prior work, through school relationships, through, other people that were actually looking at the round. So we were very lucky that we were able to kind of leverage these different contacts we have in order to triangulate around a few very key investors and angels. For people that may not have already worked in Silicon Valley or not have worked in tech before and haven't been building these, the tenacity that you can show in reaching out and asking for advice is always a strong signal to angels and investors and other people in the space. And so I would highly recommend that people shoot emails out and do their very best to network into these different kind of core pools of smart angel investors.
How many investors do you think you talked to kind of pull this round together? Like, what is the size and shape of the funnel look like, and how long did it take?
Great question. I mean, at some level, we were always doing this, always fundraising. You're always trying to talk to great people. You're always trying to get introductions to other people in the space who might be useful or helpful or excited about what you're working on. So it certainly wasn't just okay, hey, we're starting to fundraise now. In fact, the date of saying, okay, we are accepting term sheets is pretty much the end of the process. The majority of the process happens before that point, getting the introductions, building relationships, building rapport with these different individuals. And so that by the time you're ready to hit go, it's only hopefully a couple of days by the time you actually have a signed term sheet from the investors you hope to work with. So that would kind of be how we approached it. In terms of funnel, I mean, we have a very large cap table, but all of those individuals are really, really helpful in supporting the business and recruiting and spreading the word about what we're working on and its importance and how well we're, kind of executing against our core deliverables and milestones. So having that broad base has been so super critical to our success so far. And on a lot of that actually has been enabled, I think, by kind of the shift over to the Zoom culture. Being able to have a much larger base and a much more dynamic level of conversations with a more diverse group of people, was really enabled by the fact I didn't have to run from office to office to have those conversations. And then, really stressing the diversity of our cap table. We're really, really fortunate to have so many different diverse backgrounds, demographics, represented in both our company, cap table, and advisors. That's so important for an issue like what we're working on, of course, and having kind of, those different voices and expertise help guide us as we shape our business.
Okay. You're kind of dodging the question, but I guess that's okay. We're trying to understand like really what it took to raise the money. I get all the advantages of putting together that investor list, but investors or founders love to know like what does it really take. All right, we'll move on from that though. What tips would you give your younger self or other founders in general about raising capital, maybe for a healthcare or something in the space you're in, which is sort of a specialty space in many ways. Any just general advice for fellow kind of healthcare, fertility, or related businesses?
Yeah. And I guess part of the challenge here, and I recognize the name of the podcast, but so much of what goes into fundraising really isn't the fundraising itself. I think a lot of it goes into what you choose to start, who you surround yourself with, how you tell the story about your mission and vision. The fundraising I usually equate it is not the destination. It's really just filling up the gas tank at the gas station, right? You'd never make a gas station your end destination for where you're going. So much of what's critical in a fundraising process is one, picking a problem that's really large, really important to a lot of people, and one that you care a lot about. And I can't stress that last one enough. I think having a mission that resonates with people will help with hiring. The fact that it resonates with you individually as a founder will keep you engaged over the course of the long haul, and will kind of be your North Star as you run into tougher times or just kind of even through the successes. So, that's the first thing is when you're picking an idea, make sure it's a huge problem, affects a lot of people and something you really deeply care about. I'd say the second step is really thinking through who you're going to bring on from a leadership team perspective and who do you want to start this thing with. Being brutally honest with yourself about where your own expertise lies and ends and who's going to be the complementary group of people. I certainly emphasize with our group, incredibly talented people with a lot of humility and low ego. And I think that collaborative nature we've really tried to foster at Alife has served us very well as we've continued to scale. Once you have all of those kind of initial components going into your seed or Series A or wherever you're fundraising, then it's about storytelling and getting the word out. And in today's market, to go back to your question of how many people we talked to, we basically talked to everyone that was willing and interested in talking to us, right? We asked friends of friends to reach out to their contacts and put us in touch. It's really just a hustle at the end of the day. And there are a couple of high-level rules to recognize. One, another successful founder reaching out to an investor on your behalf is always more powerful than you directly reaching out to that investor. Sure. Getting inbound from those investors into your story is going to be more powerful than you reaching out to them. So all of those things are just clear, important rules that you want to use when you're trying to build out this strategy to triangulate on these core investors. But again, I would say it's really about picking the right problem, picking the right people to work on it with you. And then that third piece of how do you convey your story and how do you basically wrap this whole piece into a broader narrative that's very clear. In our case, infertility is a massive problem. It's growing substantially. We see this in the numbers. We see this in the headlines. Yeah. There's a huge need for improved technology to help improve efficacy and transparency in the space. And our team is by far the best team to go do this and the right team to back in this space because of our expertise, because of the clinical partnerships we've made, and because of our broader approach. So, that's kind of how I would approach it or think about it when going out. The advice I would have for a younger me is just really hit on those fundamentals. And then hopefully when you go out and raise, it's a lot easier conversation, right? You always want to be in that position where everyone's really excited. There's a lot of hype around your deal. There's a lot of excitement around what you guys are doing. And then you're in the position of negotiating as opposed to kind of, going out and really trying to stir up that type of interest.
Yeah. Good. Assuming you have those sort of three pillars in place, did you have a product in the market? Did you have customers at that point? Sort of what was the stage of the business that corresponds to the problem, the tech, and the people, and the story? Yeah.
So that was really early on. I mean, we're a medical technology company, so we're still, a little ways away from having product introduction. We've finished our first product. From a technical standpoint, it's going to be going into pilot sites towards the end of the year, early next. But at that point in our stage, when we raised that seed round, it was we had a few key partnerships. We had really started digging in terms of the design of what we wanted to build. We had an initial understanding for what we thought would be a good first solution here. But one of the things that I can't stress enough, and this is something that I have a lot of conversations with other top founders in the space, is you don't need to have it all figured out. What you need to do is really identify a space that is in dire need of technical innovation and is growing and is a big problem. And then over time, as you dig into that space, it's inevitable that you're going to be able to grow your vision, understand new opportunities, really see some nuance to how you want to deliver the type of value you want to deliver. And so it's really about what information do you have at the time? What can you put down in a deck that makes a lot of sense, can resonate with people? And of course, investors at the seed stage, they're really investing in you and your team as an individual. They're kind of making a bet saying, do I think this is a big problem area? And do I think this team is going to figure out how to build a great business within it? And so that's really, what you want to isolate. Obviously, over the course of your Series A, Series B, those types of criteria change. And people are starting to look for more traction or look for, will this turn into a multi, tens of billions of dollar company? So those things do evolve over time and between rounds.
Did you have to, the credentials of the team obviously help compensate, but without having a product in the market, do you go in with a deck that talks about development roadmap, or, is there ways to sort of compensate for not having a product in the market in the storytelling,
Yeah. It's a good question. I think you need to have a certain level of clarity, 100%. Now, the other end of the spectrum to be wary of is really talking too much about block and tackling, right? You don't want to just go in and say, okay, here's the motor we're going to put in the Tesla. Here's the, chassis we're going to put in the Tesla. Here's the wheel we're going to put in the Tesla. What investors really want to see is, does this team have a vision for what the world's going to look like in 10 to 20 years?
Yeah.
And do we believe that they're going to be able to address and build value within that sector to make that future a reality? And so, it's kind of a delicate dance between kind of, being audacious with your goals and viewing this very meta analysis of what the world could look like. And then also backing that up with, we are a great team. We have thought this through. Here's how we want to approach this first. And we recognize it could evolve over time. We can grow in these different areas. For a seed round, your deck should definitely be 10 to 15 slides max, right? Very, very straightforward, very clear. What's the problem? What's the opportunity? What do you want to build? Who's your team? That kind of thing. But again, the feedback I got, and you go back to your earlier question about what I wish I knew or could tell myself, is really to expand and clarify the broader vision and meta-analysis that you want to convey. What is the knock me over the head with the truth? The world is going to have flying cars because we need them. Autonomous driving is coming. Like, this is something that makes a lot of sense. Now, here's how we're going to deliver that, and here's why we're the best team to do it. Those types of kind of high-level insights that talks to a future state of the world, and then how your technology or your offering is going to fit into making that future a reality. That's I think what people really want to see in an early deck.
Yeah, I like that. The high-level insights on the future state of the world. And then what was the second part of that? Kind of how your team is the one to make it happen, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Great. Did you have any just pithy kind of banner headline on that? Infertility is increasing. Yeah. Do you have sort of that? Yeah.
So, we're constantly, thinking through exactly how to tell the story, but Yeah, I mean, at a high level, there are very scary headlines coming out right now. I mean, there was a headline, a few months ago that said by 2045, the majority of patients, couples may need assisted reproduction. I mean, that to me sticks with me. Elon Musk saying that population collapse is one of the biggest threats to humanity and civilization. These types of things are really important warnings, and to recognize that infertility is going to play a serious role, and assisted reproduction more broadly is going to play a really critical role in maintaining and getting us to that future at 2050. I think that's just a really clear insight, and people can buy into that. And then it comes down to, okay, well, how does your technology suite fit into that overall vision? How do you help enable that future? What type of value are you bringing to the table? And why is your team the right team to do it? And then lastly, kind of why now? Why is now the time? Why are we at this inflection point where 1 in 6 couples are suffering from infertility today? That's an unbelievable stat, and only a very small fraction of those that suffer from infertility are receiving treatment. So how do we change that? How do we fix that problem?
All right, I will let you go. Do you watch Handmaid's Tale?
I don't.
You probably shouldn't. It's so depressing, but
it's a little too dark for me.
It's very dark, but it's the premise. Basically, everyone's infertile, and the very few people who can produce children are, kind of taken captive, so to speak. I won't give the rest away, but it's it's a dystopian version of what happens.
Well, I think what we're trying to build, and what more broadly the whole ecosystem is trying to build, is a technology and a medical infrastructure to support the population continuing to have children. And so, hopefully that dystopian view is not where we end up. There are other movies about it, like Children of Men and other things like that. But we're really here to try to streamline the IVF experience and improve the efficacy and equity of assisted reproduction. So that's our goal.
Very good. If people want to learn more, it's simply alifehealth.com, right? Is that the website?
Absolutely. Yep. Uh-huh. And on Instagram, Alife IVF, and on Twitter at Alife IVF. So please follow us. We're continuing to have announcements, and you can hear about when our technology is going to be available near you. And would love to have you kind of be a part of the story. So thank you.
Can people get on a waiting list or anything, or is it? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. There's a waiting list on our website. We'll be sending out updates as we continue to develop and launch the technology, and that's a great place to stay in the loop.
Cool. All right, Paxton, thank you so much. Alife Health, check it out. Saving the world from population collapse.
Thanks, Nathan.
All right. Cheers. Over and out.
Have a great day. Bye now.
You too.